Thank you so much for staying this late into the afternoon. And we have 5 adults trying to discuss animation, which was always thought to be children's content, and we'll try to make the most of it. Before we actually get in, this is serious business. We are looking at probably a revenue base, global revenue base of about $450 billion in the animation industry. And over the next 10 years, this is going to go up to about $900 billion. So this is absolutely serious business. A great bunch of panelists. They have already been introduced. But what I love about is we have one OG of passion-filled person who actually left what he was doing and set up probably one of the first companies, Zeez, in Saudi, and still continues to pursue his passion. Mohamed, who has a lot of public service broadcast from animation, kids content, and coming into mainstream. Katerina, of course, she's traveled both sides of the ocean selling animation. And we have a techie who's moved into Revs and Ops at Spacetoon. Abdulaziz, to you.
Hi, Manoj. Thanks for the introduction.
A question which I've always asked myself, and I love stories to travel. We have seen international studios do exceedingly well for stories from this region, take it up to international platforms, movies, series. What has stopped us from the region to do exactly the same?
It's actually a very interesting question because, as you said, the region is filled with stories, the region is filled with talents, and the region is filled with people. So if we're talking about, for example, the Arab-speaking world, we're about 400 million people. The portion of kids in the population is higher than other societies. So what is stopping us from being there is the ecosystem. The ecosystem that we haven't built yet. We look at productions as an individual endeavors championed by regional companies trying to build successes such as that. But for this to work on a bigger and larger scale, we have to have the 360 ecosystem. We have to have the funders who are willing to take this risk, to commission original content and to wait for it, because animation takes much more time than other sorts of content. For example, with news content, you have a very quick production. With live action, you have a couple of months and then you're on screen. But with animation, with a premium animation, you have to have a lot of lead time. This is one example of how it differs. So you have to have the funders, then the producers, then the distributors, then the ones who can make the revenue streams from other aspects, such as the licensing, the merchandising. You wouldn't expect all of these 360 solutions coming from, again, companies that are trying to produce original content.
Katerina, the question is to you. Since you are also into distribution apart from the other work, picking up on where Abdulaziz left off, you today represent one portion, which is mainly Russian, but you have worked on other content. How easy or how difficult is it to convince a broadcaster or a streaming platform to actually pick up and create a space for animation content? Has it changed, or is it still very difficult convincing them of this mode of storytelling?
Worldwide, you mean, or in the region?
Both.
Both. Okay, thank you. Well, let me start with the region. We've been operating here as a distribution company for a little about 2 years, and in these 2 years we built a distribution network, probably with every outlet that is acquiring animation, and we've seen a huge demand for high quality, ready-made animated titles, features and series. So I wouldn't say this was, all you need is to have good content with proper traditional values. We collaborate with Spacetoon very successfully. They, by the way, manage our biggest brand in the region called Orange Mukau, and we were very happy. The other thing is to, now we have to, at the time where we have to go on the next step. So we need to start the licensing campaign, we need to continue doing our events and so on, and do this 360 that Abdulaziz is mentioning. Coming back to distribution worldwide, it's, in terms of animation, and I also mentioned this at the past MIPCOM that we attended. With the ready-made content, it's still, there is a demand for ready-made produced content. In terms of commissioning, there is a very different story. Worldwide, it's reducing very fast because at some point there was a boom on commissioning. It's, 2020, 2022, streamers were commissioning quite a lot of animation, but then it turns out, that animation is a must to have, but it doesn't drive the subscription. So they switched from commissioning to just acquiring. In digital space worldwide, on YouTube, it's still super important tool. So I would say in terms of distribution, animation is doing fine. The other thing is, of course, the commissioning. And here, maybe I want to go a little bit ahead with one idea. The commissions that come in here from the region, because the budgets of the regional broadcasters are limited, as you know, but very few producers rely on international distribution. But with animation, because the cost of production is so high, that's what you have to rely on when you're making your model. Otherwise, the end product will be too, the budget would be reduced to the, local, let's say, the budget that is allowed by a local broadcaster from the region. It will not allow you to make an international level product. And because of this, you're losing on this opportunity of monetization from worldwide that you have to count on first, because for animation, you need to sell it everywhere worldwide for it to be profitable.
Mohamed, Salama, question for you. So, an engineer, a techie, a startup, and then moved as the head of revenue and ops for Spacetoon. Coming down to revenue for a broadcast space, is most of your revenue stream in this region based on advertising, or are we also looking at SWOD, or is there even a TWOD space for that? You guys are pioneering along with NBC3 and, of course, Cartoon Network. I've had the opportunity to sell Cartoon Network in my previous employment with Zeez. So we used to represent Cartoon Network, and they used to represent, they still continue to represent them till, I think, the end of this year. So one question was the challenging nature of selling AWOD or advertising for animation, especially when you're looking at the children's, and a lot of companies now pulling back from actually advertising on children's content for their internal, sensibilities of, targeting. How do you manage that?
So I'm echoing the team, right? So it is challenging business. Yes, globally it has a lot of revenue streams, as you mentioned, especially in the developed markets in a way or another. It's emerging markets anyway. Having said that, for example, as you mentioned, like YouTube, if you have a kids channel, they cut your revenue, right? So they didn't consider this because of the age limitations. And hence, if you are looking into the animation businesses, it goes nowhere. If you need to have this type of social media or YouTube side of business when it comes to advertising. Spacetoon has been there for a while. They have been there with the TV and satellite channels. They have also blended revenue when it comes to merchandising, retail, events, and activations on the ground. So this is eventually where the revenue is coming from. The digital channel is very challenging here in the region. Payment gateways still challenging in the region. The awareness of the people is still challenging. I would say even a bigger statement of the ecosystem is not yet ready. So the region is still in the early steps when it comes to animation or the creator economy in general, even gaming as well. I'm coming from Unity a few years back. So it's very early for the region to monetize a proper way or to generate a good revenue from the digital channel of the type of the animations and the creator economies. Spacetoon, for example, we have this blended revenue concept, licensing, events, activities, special projects, and this is where we're trying to maintain or survive eventually the company for a while till we manage to have the whole education for the people here in the region, till the ecosystem as well start to flourish. We have more of Abdulaziz and all the entrepreneurs and the startups, so they are moving and disrupting the whole economy. So we have a better ecosystem here in the region.
Mohamed Sarshar, the question is for you. So I'm going to pick up on something from your past life working at a public service broadcast. How did you see at that point of time? That was probably about 12 years ago,
I was there 7 years, yes.
right? So how would you at that point of time look at acquiring content animation? Was it meant just to serve the children, or was it looked upon as a mass appeal? It was a piece of content which would probably be enjoyable and watched by larger audience. How was that part at that point of time?
Yes. In Iran, we have about 20 million children under 18 years old, and the TV channels for them is 3 channels for preschoolers, Puya TV. For kids, it means between 6 and 12 years old. Nahal TV, and the third one is the Omid for teenagers. And about more than 80% of the young children watch the channels, governmental channels in Iran. But buying content for these channels was my big issue in every content market, because the safe content that is suitable for the Middle East, for our beliefs, for our culture and others, is very limited. I remember that I in one MIP Junior content market, I saw about 400 IPs, and I only could choose 40 IPs, 10% of them, and 90% wasn't suitable for our TV channels. It is a big opportunity for production animation studios in Middle East, MENA, to produce safe content for the world, because the new movements in the Western countries limited the possibility of selling the content to every buyers. In China, in Russia, in MENA, the buyers have problem with new ideas that is about the sexuality and other issues that they, in the Western society, they put in their animations. And if we have a safe content, I think it is a new future for Middle East production animation studios to produce and have a big market for them. Sorry about my language.
No. Abdulaziz, we were earlier discussing about content safety, and we have seen that over the last few years, especially post-COVID, we have seen some extremely big studios coming up with content where either the movies have been dropped from the region, or we have asked for edits to happen, which has not. So again, it goes back to, when we look at that particular space, and from where Mohamed Sarshar talked about it, how do you look at, using this as an opportunity for creating content from here and content which can travel out?
I believe that this is not as big as it sounds. Yes, we have a problem with certain content coming from certain countries. This has always been the case. It's not something new. Maybe the new agendas are evident now more than ever. But there was always the censorship aspects of in our countries of the content coming and these kinds of things. I believe the opportunity lays more in the relatability of the content. So animation is, by its nature, is appealing. I talk about animation for kids specifically because this is my area. Animation appeals to kids because it's animation. So we have a bigger pool of content that can attract kids than ever before. Imagine that for my 6-year-old child now, he has a library coming from every single country of the world available to him. This has never been an option before. Like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, this was not an option. So now we have a tremendous amount of content. Add to that the content shelf life is a lot. So it's not something that expires within 1 or 2 years. It's not like sports or even some dramas, or it stays. So you have now people here selling animated content produced 10 years ago and still being recirculated. Sadly, this has affected the perception of commissioners into thinking that this is an easier way of doing it, getting that content that's already there. Now, the problem with that, safety, I believe, is 20%, because with this huge amount of offering, you can find other options as well. It's not an issue when you have this huge catalog. But the opportunity lays within the relatability part. We have seen it firsthand. When you produce content that speaks to regional audiences, they relate to it much more than what they would do with content coming from other parts of the world, or generic content and universal content. There is nothing wrong with that, but it's an additional entertainment value that we can offer that others cannot offer. So I believe this is a window of opportunity that we as regional producers can see, and we hope that with the successes that we're doing, with being featured in the top 10, staying in the top 1 even for prolonged amount of time, that commissioners can see this as well. They can see the value of investing in regional content, waiting for it because of the relatability aspect, in addition, of course, to the safety aspect that you mentioned.
Mohammad, that's Spacetoon, right? You've been championing, and probably the only network, apart from, of course, the international companies, who are completely invested in the space of animation and kids content.
Yes.
How do you look at, especially at your acquisition level, right, look at this particular aspect of content safety?
So content safety is one of the key things on Spacetoon. That's where the regional flavor is, right? So even if the content itself has a bit of twist out of the context, we work with the author, we work with the original animators to twist the whole story just to cope with the region. And then we do the localization or the dubbing of the voice of the Arabic, and then it becomes relevant. There is a lot of content eventually, I would say not 100% clean, but then a decent format of like 90%, maybe like 80%. And then we try to work with the author to clean it out and then become suitable for the region. What we're trying to do as well from Spacetoon is to be very selective when it comes to content origin. So maybe that's why, like Japan, for example, is one of the markets that has a common value of the Middle East. The parent, the family, the ethics, and these things. So this is eventually one of the destinations that we try to cater the content from. So we are coping with the region requirements in a way or another. And yes, back to the safety. Safety is key because this is where the kids start to build their knowledge, build their culture, build their own values. if we disrupt this big time, and as Abdulaziz mentioned, the catalog now is insane. Everyone producing anything. And the whole AI thing goes wild as well, right and left. So we're trying to be very cautious when or what we are offering on the table for the kids.
Katerina, you have always represented international content. You have carried content to different parts of the world. You've seen there has been a growth of locally created Arabic animation content. Have you ever thought of representing and taking about, and when you look at content in terms of story first and then in terms of production value, where would you place the content which is getting produced here? And how simple is it for you to take it to international markets?
Yeah. Actually, this has always been our goal, to represent not only international content, but to start representing also the local content. And we keep looking, we keep talking to producers, and some of these conversations are at a very advanced stage. I would say I personally see content coming from this region. There's different content. One of the biggest struggle for me is that lots of content is 2D. It's produced in 2D technology, because our key markets for 12P, we work very extensively with Asia, China, Southeast Asia. And China is always, like, just commercially speaking, China is the biggest license fee of all our, sales, always. But China is only focused now on 3D content. So here is a little struggle here. However, I think on the positive side, I see a lot of opportunities for local content in some Southeastern Asia territories like Indonesia, Malaysia, that have a similar maybe consumption patterns and similar values that they share. That's where our Russian content also works very well, and Russian content is super traditional. Russian content for kids, it's very, very traditional. It's always full family, respect towards the elderly and whatnot. All the generational concepts. So I would see the content for Middle East have a great opportunity there and a great fit, and I'm hoping that 12P will be someone to take it there at some point. However, where I also see the opportunity is co-creating the content, and we've been having these conversations as well, so that we can, we have this expertise. We sell to 80 countries around the world from 12P. 80 countries. We have the expertise of international sales. We know what works of each market. So if we unite with, let's say, Abdulaziz, and we co-create something, it will take some time, right? Because animation is a long process. However, the project, he can bring the local value and local story, and we can help to add this international flavor without destroying the local, basis. And I feel that this kind of project, it's something the local MENA-based broadcasters, they also want this and they need this, because it's a, maybe a bit higher level of production, because we will also rely on international, distribution for financing it. So it will go on another level in terms of the production budget, while staying in the safe space, of course, as well. So I hope I answered the question. So that's my...
I have another question for you, taking from here. Here we are talking about end finished product, content as a whole. Do you see stories, formats, either from Russia traveling to this part of the world, or local stories? We have a challenge when you said about technology, about 2D and 3D and quality of production, right? But can stories as format, as IP travel to international markets from here?
Stories, like local stories?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is now this whole concept that, global streamers have developed, local to global. This concept is the king now all over the world, and we see, we see most of this in live action, right? That local stories from Korea, from China, they get to international audience because they're just so, appealing, and they really hit this mark. So I see there is no restriction why a local story from the Middle East cannot be appealing. Especially for us, Middle East is always, this magic in a sense, like Aladdin kind of thing. These stories are something that are super appealing to people around the world, and the desert, there is so much stuff that can be done. So for sure, I think they should just be packaged correctly, And by correctly, I mean they should be packaged and marketed with an international eye. But the root and origin should be local. The script and the script writer. But how you package it and how you present. As a salesperson, that's my job, to present it, to ensure that it's how the international market wants to see it and how there. One example is, I know, of course, Bidai is not here with us, but Mansour is now represented by a Canadian company, right? Epic Story, and I met them at MIPCOM, and part of what they shared with me is that, yes, it's a local story that's appealing to the world because of, the magic it creates.
A question for, Iran has been seen. When we look at this region, we have the entire Arabic and we have Iran, with very healthy content market, especially also in the music space and, of course, in the animation. Have you seen successful export of Iranian animation outside of, or are you all a largely self-consuming, place where you would create it for your own market because it's a huge populated market?
We are a newborn studio, but the other Iranian studios, yes, they have famous animated movies that are successful in other markets. For example, the Dolphin Boy was a great animation movie that was have a big market in Iran, in Russia, after that in Turkey and other countries. After that, we have another title. The Persian name was Bache Zarang. It was it means in English. I should find a good translation for that. But it was have the biggest box office in Iran, and after that have a screening on Turkey and other countries. And now the Babai is the hero. Babai is the latest movie that has a screening in the same time in Iran, Turkey, Kazakhstan, and other countries. Yes, we have big movies, but the problem in Iran for animation production is that the production environment of the animation in Iran is by order by government. They supply the budget and everything, and many of the studios have a guarantee from the buyer in the first stage of the development. And because of that, the production has not a good quality for international markets. We should spend many money to have a quality that is suitable for international markets. And the low budget production in Iran is very normal. One of the most important experience in production is that the quality is the most important thing in our production. And the second issue is that the newborn studios produce with the little episodes, small episodes of each title. But every broadcasters and platforms needs many episodes of one title because the audience needs to watch a title for a season, for 2 seasons, and it's very important. with with the 13 episodes, we cannot have a good market for them.
Abdulaziz, Saudi in the recent times have been really championing content production, right? We have heard of various rebates offered by 3-4 different provinces and regions and commissions. Are these rebates also applicable for animation content?
I'm not sure exactly. I know one rebate program that might, but these initiatives are relatively new, so I'm not exactly sure. I can't speak of any certain program.
Now, going by your decade plus in the animation industry, I'm sure one of your pathways is to create IP and then exploit that IP internationally. Let's talk about merchandising and licensing then. Mm-hmm. What's your take, and do you see revenue streams from your portfolio? Because it is fairly large, you know. And when I used to actually sell Cartoon Network, and I was amazed one day when I actually sat with the team at Cartoon Network, and I said, you know, this actually looks like a tele-shopping channel, wherein you made a great-looking tele-shopping channel for the children, but your business lies in merchandising and licensing. You know, somehow we have kind of missed or yet to figure out that we still take content in all seriousness of the content, right? But if you look at smart operators, they are in the business of real estate, fabric, retail, and other industries. And, oh, by the way, I also do animation. How have you tried to exploit? Have you managed? What's your story on that?
So licensing and merchandising plays a pivotal role when it comes to funding animation and the animation business globally. Sadly, in the region, it hasn't been exploited as well. And the reason is, going back to the answer of the first question, is the ecosystem. So we have a strange ecosystem when it comes to commissioning, to rights split, and it impacts everything else. So for example, if I will sell the content with the rights of the characters to a gigantic TV station or to a government entity who doesn't have the need to exploit the licensing and merchandising, there will not be an engine to drive this forward. So if it was a pure commercial initiative where we produce, we keep the rights, we give a pay one window to X channel, and then we try to exploit the licensing and merchandising, it will be a different story. But I believe the region is yet to develop the ecosystem. So again, going back to how the projects are commissioned, who owns the projects? Because if the owner of the project doesn't have the incentive to exploit these kinds of things, he will not do so. Because you're competing with the characters coming from Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and those types of things. So for a toy manufacturer, for a distributor of these toys, for the ones who's putting them on shelves, they have to believe in the value coming from this. So it has to have a passionate team behind it, pushing for this to be a reality. Until it's established, and then you can see the commercial value in it.
I have a leading question for you. We talked about merchandising and your take on merchandising. Would you, somewhere in the near future, look at a business re-engineering of the business you are in and probably go and acquire a toy manufacturer in China?
The manufacturing part is not the difficult part. So, because the suppliers are there. We get emails all the time from people willing to do this. It's the matter of, as I said, I will give you one example just to illustrate my idea. So in any successful, in any I would say mature market for kids content, whenever you do season 1 and season 1 succeeds, you will do season 2. This is ABC of the business, right? Sadly, it's not the ABCs of the region because, again, the commissioning. So I got commissioned to do season 1. Season 1 was very successful, extremely successful, and then the channel changed the strategy and they will not do season 2. Now, who owns the rights? Sadly, they do. So now We don't have a season 2. For the licensing and merchandising, you have to have an engine of episodes coming to, so kids are engaged, and they so you can't say for a toy manufacturer, I have a season last year, it was successful, and you will sell toys based on that. So this is one example that illustrates, this is a hands-on example we have been through, that illustrates the challenges when it comes to exploiting content. Because licensing and merchandising, it's the long-term whole, right? It's not a short-term thing. It's an animation story all over again. So it's a strategy that you plan for 5 years to get fruits out of it.
Can I add
Katerina,
here?
please.
Yeah, I just want to build, basically build on your example here. The thing is, as a foreigner, you know, when I look at the market, it's just the Middle East. It's very segmented. So for, let's say, your case that you illustrated, if you had a great international distribution, you know, and presence in other markets, you would tell your commissioner, okay, fine, you don't want to commission, I'm going and, you know, I'm going to try and finance at least 50% from, you know, from others who acquired and where it worked. But because the market relies on this model of commissioning from one, you know, major broadcaster from the region, you cannot do that. So that's all it is. Plus, speaking about the market being segmented, right? I know, and please tell me if I'm wrong, but as I know that most of the animation productions here, you can't say that they're universal for all the MENA region. They mostly appeal, let's say, to the, you know, UAE, or mostly to like Levant region or Saudi Arabia. So it's even within this MENA region, you can't, there are still main markets, you know, for these animation productions. Is it correct, right?
To an extent, depending on the production.
Dependent. Yeah. But in any case, what I feel is the answer to this is more extensive, let's say, distribution, so that you try not to rely on this only, let's say, commissioner that's out there. And it's easy to say for me, you know, but when you're a producer, because, of course, in order to do this, you will need to make some compromises, which may affect your domestic market, which is the most important one. So it's like apples and oranges, but you always have to make a choice. And I think that the partnerships is the answer to, you know, to this question. Yeah.
True, Katerina. Coming back into Spacetoon, and I have seen that the advertising revenue within this sector for children's is probably today way under $20 million in this region, unfortunately. How do you still and you know, you have some heavy hitters and major players out here. The other major player, which is MBC, is part of a larger network. Of course, MBC, you know, children's content is important from them. Animation is largely important for them, for Shahid. But they have other businesses. It completes their portfolio. But for you, it's your sole business. How do you manage that revenue stream? Are you looking at new revenue streams? And how do you manage your business?
So every single day we are looking for new revenue stream. Goes without saying. So this is the day job. I will answer your question just to give a bit of feedback. So when you mentioned about the incentive in the market, right? So back in 2020 with the Corona time in the UAE, Abu Dhabi in very specific case, they start to have this program for the creator economy. This is meant for game and animation, both of them, where they are doing some sort of incentive to subsidize the salaries for the creators and the production cost as well. I think in Abu Dhabi and Yas Creative Island, they managed to have like a 30% rebate program for the creator economy. If you produce your content here in the UAE, namely Abu Dhabi, you have a 30% like cashback or kickback or support in a way or another. 1 year later, Saudi, they went in a bigger scale, like, hey, creator economy, just jump in. I will get you all the facilitation. I will give you fund even to establish and a 40% rebate. So it's extreme incentive for a lot of companies eventually either to relocate or to have a local branch here in the region and start to push the whole creator economy again, from animations, from games, from content creators in general. So there is a massive, I would say, political direction from the government and the public investment funds here in the region to push this industry. But back again to the topic of the ecosystem is not ready. The talents that we have is not tailored for this type of industry. Hence, we missed a lot of knowledge around this. Basic like 3D, yeah? So 3D, real-time 3D technologies, for example, in Unity and Unreal, there is very few people doing these things. We may have developers or coders, we may have tech engineers, for example, but we don't have creative people or artists at that sense. And hence, it's an ongoing activity and it will take a bit of time. So having said that about the Spacetoon, yes, advertising ads business is not that profitable. Again, the direct channel of the digital marketing is not helping because of the limitation in the region. The piracy is already there. There is a tons of challenge on the emerging market, and very specific on the MENA markets in a way or another. But here's the licensing and merchandising piece, yeah? Here's the event activities for the characters. So Spacetoon, if you are not aware, is like we have an arm for events, an event on the ground. The National Geography Museum, for example, with the Louvre in Abu Dhabi, it's managed by Spacetoon. The experiences of the PUBG, of Conan, Detective Conan, of Bluey, there's a lot of theme parks that have been managed, funded, and also a revenue stream for Spacetoon events or activation merchandising. We do have Toys Pro, yeah? So it's one of the companies under the Spacetoon group that do toys, yeah? So in the retail, doing this type of revenue in a way or another as businesses, again, because of the challenging market of the animation or the normal broadcasting channels or even the advertising, which is not helping.
I'll ask members of the audience to think over the question after my final question to the panel, so you would have them answering your question if there is something to come up. Address it to either the panel or to an individual. Mohammad Sarshar, the question to you is development of talent. Do you all have sufficient people within the creator economy, within the talent pool, or do you get creative work, storyboarding done within the country, and do you send it out to do development? How does it work in Iran?
In Iran, there is many artists from high schools to universities that learned about the animation, and many of them now work for other countries like Turkey, Canada, and others. The base of animation production in that countries is from Iranian artists and other countries. And the art in Iran has a long history. Because of that, for example, the animation production in India is very popular. But the artistic side of the production in Iran is better than the India. Let me say something about merchandising, because we have a big experience in licensing in Iran about the Shekaristan in 10 years ago. It was a famous animated series, more than 1,000 minutes production. And we had 25% of the production cost from licensing. It was a very important experience for me, and because of that, when we established our new company and start the production, we have a production department and license department in the same time, and our toys and applications are ready before launching the animated series. Because Iran is an industrial country, and there is many companies, factories that they need characters. And if you introduce them good characters for children, they accept that and pay good money for this.
Zeez, you are an entrepreneur and you've managed to run your business a decade plus. Talent is very important to you. What sort of work do you do for development of talent? What happens at your offices and at your studios, and how much of your work is actually, outsourced out to get the finished product? And that would be the final question. So, members of the audience, be ready with your questions. We have some. Abdulaziz.
So for us, talents hasn't been an issue because we view the word as the source. The beauty of animation is you don't have to do it under one roof. And people realized this in the Corona and the COVID times, but we realized it earlier. So we started scouting for talents from wherever they are that meets the quality we'd like to, the budget that we have. So we developed a hybrid remote model in which we don't outsource. No, we work with the talents. We hire them per project, full time, regardless of the agreement and the type of agreement. But it hasn't been an issue. I mean. And this is one of the beauties of working in the animation business.
Wonderful. Questions? Anything for the panel? Or have they been so sufficiently clear? All right, one question up. Or you have another alternative career in teaching?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
First of all, thank you all for having this. My name is Dari. I'm a part of an entertainment group from Kuwait. It's called Ramza Group. I wanted to disagree on a few points, and I want to hear the pushback on it. We all tend to blame subsidization. We all say that because of subsidization, then we have this, we call it in Arabic, manam bisikka. I'm not going to sleep on the pavement. There's this comfort there. And because of this subsidization, it's not pushing us, it's not incentivizing us to transcend this barrier into developing a multi-functional product. Now, the issue here is, I think, the creators themselves. I don't think the issue is how we look at our own IPs. When we think of our IPs as a way to a commercial project to get the money from a government or to subsidize most of the production, then, well, we're looking down on it. I think there's multiple ways to start flipping the narrative from the creator's perspective to say, okay, outside coming in IPs are solid enough. We know Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network, they all make great IPs, but so can we. And I think we're no short of any talent. And I think this flips when we say that our storytellers are unique in their own perspectives. And I think it lies upon us. I came from an investment banking background, and we made few acquisitions of amazing animation studios, and we're based in Kuwait. Talent-wise, it's the worst in the GCC, because all the real talents are moving to Riyadh, Jeddah, Abu Dhabi, and with all of this, we're still commercializing everything we're making without any subsidization. So the way I think about it is, if we can do it, so can anyone on the panel do it. And I think it should be a narrative flip, that how can we, and this could be the question of how can we start taking accountability and saying, okay, I understand there's subsidization, but how can I not take it and transcend it? Because all you need is one extremely successful project that can do a great show, great live shows, great merchandise, and you can cross many platforms, be successful. So that's what I wanted to just kind of emphasize, putting out there and having the narrative be shared with people that we should look up to, that are leading the way. That's it from my side.
Thank you so much. I'll give you an input on that. So, for me, content is content across, be it animation or anything else, and I work on a lot of content, and as part of the Dubai Studios, we invest into. I'm honestly very encouraged to probably look into animated content, which I've really not looked into my portfolio over the next couple of years. We should, I think, use rebates and subsidies to enhance the industry than to, figure out how to increase our profitability or something else. And that's the greatest challenge which we have. And I did note way back when rebates were initially very popular. Actually, one of the first rebates came in Switzerland, and I saw a lot of early Bollywood and Indian movies having at least 3 songs filmed in Switzerland. And then, of course, it became very popular as a travel destination. Unfortunately, it's the largest and the oldest probably industry, after Hollywood, but the number of movies produced. But it has never seen the magnitude with the number of, because of the lack of use of the subsidies to put it back into the industry. So what the studios or the investors actually did, use those subsidies as profits than having a greater product going out into the market and making better monies. And I think everybody here would have the same challenge. That's just one of the challenges of our industry and that actually goes back to singular intent, either by the individual concerned or probably by the studio itself. Any other comments or questions before we wrap up the panel? Thank you very much. Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Katerina. Thank you, Abdulaziz, Mohamed.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mohamed.
very much.
Thank you so very much. And thank you all of you for being part of this.